They fly on silver wings. They fight with nerves of steel, partly metal, partly real. They are the Silverhawks.
Welcome back to the Tidarium here. This is Mike. Today I want to talk to you about the Super 7 Reaction Silverhawks figures. Now, are they really worth 25 bucks a piece? I am the biggest Super 7 shill, so I'm going to be honest about this, and I will say they look magnificent right here in front of me. But we're going to do a few things. First, we're going to compare them to the vintage figures. Then we're going to compare them to the modern vac metallized figures and see what these do better or worse than those. And then we're just going to have a little bit of a discussion about, are they truly worth $25 a piece? Would I recommend spending that much? And what would make them worth that much if I don't think they're worth 25? We'll talk about this and more coming up. We are going to start with Quicksilver, and the first thing I want to say is that he's very, very shiny, and he's very, very silver, and that is what I want in a Quicksilver, and it works really well. But he does have the usual 5 points of articulation, head side to side, and it's very tight, so the joints are really tight. And then he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points of articulation, and that's it. He has a really nice tampograph on his chest that matches, let's see if we can matches the original. We ditched Tallyhawk, and these are, you know, it's funny, they're supposed to look like the show, I guess, but they're also supposed to look like the toy because they're vac metal. It's kind of going against what they said with the main line, with the Ultimates line, with this bird not being like the toy bird. Anyhow, it's a decent looking Tallyhawk overall, and it's got a blue stripe and a beak painted on, and that's about it. That's about all this figure is going to do. And there's some writing on the back of the legs and stuff. This is literally just going to stand on your shelf and look good. And on one hand, I kind of wanted to keep them carded, but on the other hand, I wanted to open them up and just kind of handle them and just see how it feels with these now. Nothing feels different than any other reaction figures out there. So let's start doing some comparisons. Of course, I'm going to compare all of these to the vintage ones, but I'm also going to do a little reaction comparison. All right, let's do some comparisons here. So this is a vintage Star Wars C-3PO from 1977, and could have been 1982 also, or 83, but this one here, oh, couldn't be 83. I think that's when they went with the removable limbs. And then this is a standard reaction figure, so you can see they're a little taller than some reaction figures are shorter, some are taller, so they do have height variations in there, but fits right in with the Kenner scale is what they were doing. One of the problems is that the original Kenner scale is this big. Now, the fact that they're not going to make these bigger just because Kenner was bigger, they're keeping them all in scale with the original Kenner Star Wars, that sort of poses an issue if you want to mix these figures in with your original Silverhawks collection. Now for the important shot here, it's important to see what it looks like next to the original Kenner one, and one of the problems you have with your original Kenner one is the fact that you have some paint chipping here and here, and but this one doesn't have the paint chipping because it's brand new. So the paint's still clinging to the vac metal. And then another thing that is different here is the way it's posed. You know, come to think of it, with this thing falling over, I don't even know what stands to recommend for these. Maybe somebody in the comments does. It would be interesting to know, so you can order exactly what's needed if you want to use stands for these. But, so this guy here has some paint wear. He doesn't have paint wear. He has a different pose. Now, I do want to say that you can move his arms around, but I'm not going to. But you can actually move the arms forward, kind of like on this figure here. This one here doesn't have wings on him, so it's easy to move this forward like so. So you have a little more options there other than just the gimmick. Now, I don't want the gimmick involved. I do not at all want the gimmick. But what would I rather have seen? I would rather have seen them doing the O-ring versions and then vac metallizing them. Now, I understand they're probably not doing it because it's going to rub a lot of that off. That's fine with me, though. I mean, let me be the one to decide if I'm going to let it rub it off and all that kind of stuff. O-ring would have been nice. But I don't think we're ever going to get that. And then we're not going to get wings. So we have no wings on a Silverhawk. So it's one of those things. It's Silverhawks in name only. It's kind of crazy. Getting in the Tallyhawk comparison, you do notice that they did follow with the blue stripe on the head. But the wings are folded back, kind of like you see in the intro. And then here is the vintage toy one, which is much different, much bigger. A couple of different colors going on with it. Maybe it's not supposed to be a couple different colors. Maybe it's just faded over the years. But there's the first one. Let's get into the next one. Before we move on to the next figure, we do have to take a look at this. My reflection in this. This is like a charcoal, almost black. And this is super shiny. They have the ability to do that in the right color. So why is it that color? I don't know. In fact, there's a figure that is a repaint of the first version of Quicksilver that's on BBTS. And it's like dark silver or something like that. I forgot the name of it. But it's one I would think this should carry that name. And then let's get a true silver. I mean, does it show up? How different? Massively different. Next up we have Steelheart, and I think that she does look good. I like the color of her, I like the way she looks, and I like her, well, she doesn't have the most feminine of physiques, and neither did Kinner. I don't know if I'm getting the physique on there just right. Okay, there it is. There's the feminine physique that's not so much. And then nice and shiny. Well, of course, we like the shiny, the green. So everything else is going to be kind of the same with her. And then, of course, she comes with this bird that's just posed. So we can jump, since we did all the other stuff with Quicksilver, we can jump straight into the comparison, which I think is the most important. And we get this comparison here next to Steelheart and her Razor figure, which this actually had a gimmick, and I don't need a gimmick. I don't want gimmicks in these things unless it is something that is like truly going to be great. I did not think this was a great gimmick in the first place, just the wings popping up. But again, would have been nice if we had some wings. We had an option there. I mean, even the Mexican bootlegs that come out, I think I got all mine for under $20. And those had some wing. It was a big piece of plastic, but at least you had a wing option. And, you know, how are you going to wing it with these? You're not going to be able to wing it. So, there is something right there. Some paint app on the side there of the bird. I didn't notice it on Tallyhawk. And for whatever reason, this figure's not standing up. Now, I will say this. She is one of the more expensive figures in the line. Not the most expensive, but she's in like the top 3. Depending on the day and depending on condition and, of course, all that kind of stuff. Finding her carded, she might be the most expensive card, second most expensive carded behind the Ultrasonic Quicksilver. But with that, that's how they look. So let's move on to Bluegrass, because Bluegrass has some different stuff going on. And I almost forgot to make this shot here, so I want to showcase that the coloration on this is not exactly the same as we got on the vintage. It's lighter, and this is purpler, so nothing really matches here. So this, I mean, they all look great. They're just different shades of purple and blue and stuff. This is more blue than that super purple, and this is in the middle. The vintage is in the middle, so I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, but I'll see it in editing here in a little bit. But I still think this was a great job. I'm happy with the color they put on her. I'm happy with this color, and I'm still happy with that color. Again, a lot of people are going to go, well, let's refer to the cartoon. Next up, we have Bluegrass, and his guitar is more like the Ultrasonic Bluegrass, the second version, and less like what came with the first version. And then the coloration, I think, is a fantastic color of blue. I like his scarf on there, and then his hat does come off. It is different. The vintage one has a hole in the top. This one looks like a full hat, which I think is an improvement to the original. I don't know why they have a hole in the top of the original one, but he does look really good. And then from the back, about the same as the other ones. Nothing really all that different. I like his ears. His ears look interesting. Like headphones on there, right? Because he's a musician. It's all about the music. and all of that fun stuff. But we're going to bring in the vintage figure, and we're going to show the similarities. If I had trouble with her standing up, I know I'm going to have trouble with him standing up. Alright, so here they are, just standing side by side. Now, you're going to notice it's a bit of a brighter blue than what we got with the vintage figure. Now, I don't believe vac metal fades so much as just chips off. So that's where it's kind of one of those things. It is sort of painted. It's not like it's dyed plastic. I know I have seen different color variations of them from Sun and stuff, but it's not too drastically far. But if you look at this, I mean, looking at the camera, they look similar. Maybe in editing I'll see it, but this is the Argentina version, and it is a much deeper blue, which maybe we'll see it when I flip it around to the back, but this is, the coloration of it doesn't really match the original one. So if they're going for toy, they didn't match the original toy color, but I actually like the color that they went with more than the original Bluegrass color. As you can see, there it is. And this is probably the best way to see it. Well, one of these is going to fall, but these colors match more than the original one. So whatever, Apex or something like that, one of the companies that made this down there, did a better job. The coloration of the Argentina one looks so much better. All right, now these were $25. The vac metal adds the extra $5. You're paying $25 for Monstar also, and he's not vac metalized, and he doesn't even come with an accessory. So this is the profit leader on this. Like, they're making super big bucks off this guy, I guess. But there's a couple things about Monstar. This is pre-transformation, so he was not made back in the vintage Kenner line, but he won't fit in with your vintage Kenner line. So it's one of those weird catch-22s. He has some interesting spikes and stuff going on. His head sculpt is really nice. And I almost want to pull the Ultimates one over here just to kind of show how good it looks. But I mean, they've done this in Ultimates. And that's the weird thing. Like, they've already done all this, a lot of this stuff in Ultimates. And we get him now in a 5-point of articulation, which I think does look good overall. It is a good looking figure. But is it worth $25? I'm going to start and say, for sure not worth $25. I have a gut feeling he'll be going on sale down the road. But we'll talk a little more about that here in a little bit. Now let's bring in the vintage one. And this is all we got. Now we got his armored up version. And he has a bird. So there's no bird with him. He got a bird. And the Ultimate's got a bird. So makes no sense. Why are we not getting a bird? He's not even vac metal. So he's the ultra cheaped out figure. And, well, I guess you got to get a bad guy. I believe more people are just going to get the Silverhawks that are vac metalized and skip him. But then again, they might regret it down the road if you're going to collect all of this. But now we need to really get into a talk about this. Now for the ultimate, say, $100 question. Are these worth $25 a piece? And I'm going to say, as it stands right now, no, not really. And yes, I am the biggest Super 7 shill out there, but I don't feel like they're worth the $25 a piece. At $20, I would have been okay with it, and at $25, I feel like they were too much. That's why I'm not doubling up on them yet. I haven't doubled up on them. It's the only set I have, so I don't have a carded set to show you guys. And with that, I'll wait for them to go on sale to get a carded set, or maybe miss out. Maybe they sell out. Maybe they're a hit. But for $25, they will not fit in with your vintage. And I'm going to really risk moving this and mess my shot up, but they don't fit in with your vintage. And it's okay, Monstar. It's okay. Your pre-transformation. And with that, that never was the goal with it. But for the price, what you could say is there's one more thing that could make these worth $25 in the end. And that's because the vintage ones, she's like $150 to $200. He's pushing for a good one with good paint, $75. Same thing over here. Just his hat's like $50. And no, you can't swap. The hats are not swappable. The sizes are way too small. And then Monstar is generally like $30 to $50, depending on condition and if his gimmick works. The gimmick, the chest opening gimmick. only works in a few. But with all of that, if you're saying, could I get a Silverhawk collection on the shelf for $25 a figure? So you're looking at between half to 10% of what some of the vintage ones go for. Then, well, actually, it would be worth $25 a piece, but only if they gave you the rest of the figures. Now, there's only 16 characters, and seeing how they've done this with Bluegrass, having the second version of Bluegrass's guitar, I don't see them doing any of the figures that were just remade into the Ultrasonic, and they had two versions. But there are some Ultrasonics that came out by themselves, and so with that, I could see those getting made. If they make all of them, all of the Hawks at least, and then several more of the bad guys, and you could say, I don't have any vintage ones, and I don't want to spend that much money, but I do want to have a collection to put on my shelf to look good on one specific shelf, or share a shelf with other franchises, then it would be worth $25 a piece if they did them all. But if this is all they don't do any more, then I don't really find it to be worth $25 a piece. All right, so what's my ultimate decision on this? As it stands, if this is all they make, these are definitely not worth $25 in my opinion. If they make more and they flesh out a whole line, it is still overpriced, but worth it if you can put stuff, a little collection together of these and save the ridiculous money the finished ones go for. And with all of that, how far will they go? How deep will they go? And now they say they're going to be focusing on their core. I know Super 7 is going through some stuff right now, and I wish them well. I hope that they get through it and they can continue making the rest of the Silverhawks for the Ultimates line. I hope that they can finish up Dungeons and Dragons. I hope that they do more of the G.I. Joe. I hope that we get some of the stuff they've been working on. But what do they consider core? I don't know. Is this considered core? Like they're the only ones making Silverhawks right now? It should be a core, and it should be on their agenda. Thundercats should be core, should be on the agenda. But as it stands, if they don't make anything else, then these aren't worth $25. And it's really going to be a slap in the face if they give them a little more articulation in the shoulders and some wings, and they're still $25, which I would love that if they could do it, but I don't see that ever happening. They should get some wings, they should get something to make them closer to what we have with the vintage line, but as it stands, $25 for some 3.75-inch figures. The VAC metal is nice, the VAC metal looks good, but yeah, not worth the price of admission. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, subscribe, Teddy Hanger out.
Born of a time beyond time, they sacrificed their human bodies, modified to withstand the stress of their long journey through space to defend the universe against the terrible Monstar and his intergalactic mob.